I'm Bill McWilliam, president of Cascadero Copper, CCD on the TSX Venture Exchange. Cesium is one of the world's rarest metals with a growing industrial demand. Drilling is underway on our Tehran property in Argentina to prove up a cesium resource. Cascadero's patent-pending leach process has the potential to make Cascadero the lowest cost supplier of cesium in the world. Visit our website, cascadero.com, or phone us at 604-924-5504.
You're listening to howestreet.com radio, available online at talkdigitalnetwork.com. Welcome to howestreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website rickackerman.com. Welcome back to the show, Rick, and the best of the holidays.
Always a pleasure, Jim, and the same to you. I enjoy our interviews.
How has the year ended for the picks that you made, say, at the end of last year or the start of this year?
Well, from a technical standpoint, just predicting things will be higher has been an absolute no-brainer. You know, you know that over the years that we've talked, I've been kind of a perma-bear, but I never let that get in the way of charts that say higher. So they did stay higher, and they say higher right now. We're finishing the year with quite a few outstanding targets unreached. Just to give you an example, Apple, the biggest cap company in the world, currently trading for 171. I've had 194 out on that, but more immediately a target at 184 and change. Boeing just fell short of a minimum projection I had to 301. Let's call it 302. And I think it's going to take another leg up and get it. But even if it pulls back, I'd be thinking it's a buy. Boeing is an interesting stock because it represents real goods. Boeing turns out a real product, a pretty big, heavy one. And so it's definitely brick and mortar. Another company that falls into that category is Caterpillar. You know, when you see Caterpillar go up, it's very different from suggesting that the .com economy is healthy. You know, Caterpillar is a real company with a global business and heavy machinery. So I'm seeing, let's just say, signs of real economic activity there.
Did the President Trump tax cuts have the desired effect?
That's to be cynical about it. Yes, they did. You know, just talking about them has made the market do what all the talkers might have wanted or expected it to do. If you look at the details, you know, other than there's nothing in it really. I mean, it's garbage. I have somewhat of an axe to grind there because I had a divorce in the last year, and one provision in the tax code is that that alimony paid, meaning by the husband, in almost all instances, will no longer be tax deductible and it will be tax free to the wife. And nobody really wanted that, not even the wives, because they're going to find that their divorce settlements are negotiated downward somewhat because the husband is no longer somewhat cushioned by the deductibility of those mortgage checks that we mail out every month. So, but you know, that was just sort of emblematic of what is in the tax bill. It's garbage with respect to what it may or may not do for individuals. You know, there's so much crap in there and the idea was to simplify, but that hasn't happened either because not one taxpayer in 10,000 could tell you like what it's going to do for him. So it didn't simplify the tax code at all. And what's in it has such, you know, it's definitely going to be a hit on the housing industry because with the standard deduction raised above $24,000 for joint filing, more people will take just the standard deduction rather than the mortgage interest, itemized deduction. So what you wind up with is a bill that essentially lowered the corporate tax rate from whatever it was, 35% to a nominal 20%, but that's what they're paying right now. You know, when you you work the macro numbers and figure out what the effective rate of the corporations are paying, it's 20% anyway. So that, all of which did not stop the market from going nuts. But as you know, I always say that it's a tail wagging the dog, that the market would be exactly where it is, even if Hillary were president and we had no tax cuts. So there you go.
Well, the president certainly takes credit for it.
Yeah, they always do, you know. But to me, the economic cycles are so big, they're so huge. They're way out of the league of the president and whatever the heck he's doing. You know, the broad cycles are just they're ruled by the cosmos, not by congressional legislation. And if you happen to be a president lucky enough to be in the White House when the economy is good, then that's just the way it is. Bill Clinton lucked out in that way. The second George Bush most surely did not. So yeah, we'll let Trump blather as much as he wants about how great the economy is, but he had, as far as I'm concerned, he had nothing to do with it. He was simply a man ordained by certain mysterious cyclical forces to be in the White House when he was.
We'll have more with Rick Ackerman right after the break.
Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the Pink's CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Glance Technologies owns and operates Glance Pay, a disruptive mobile payment technology now live in 16 cities in Canada and about to launch in the US. With revenues up 664% in the last quarter, Glance Technologies has the potential to be a worldwide leader in an industry projected to grow to $1.3 trillion in 3 years. Glance Technologies stock symbols are GLNFF in the US and GET in Canada. Find out more at glancepay.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Rick Ackerman. Rick, what do you see with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies? South Korea announced today that it's going to make it a lot harder to deal in cryptocurrencies, and they're very popular in South Korea.
Yeah, I've been reading as much as I can about Bitcoin, and I would say over the last 2 or 3 weeks, Bitcoin has gone through a negative news cycle. You know, most of the commentary I've seen has been really skeptical, and I've got a guy who mentioned in my chat room that some other form of crypto money would eventually supersede Bitcoin. But you can see some of the problems now. This guy is saying that Hashgraph is superior to blockchain. Well, maybe not. You know, a lot of even the negative comments that I read on Bitcoin are positive as far as the possible uses of the blockchain algorithms that essentially sustain Bitcoin. But, you know, I have my doubts about Bitcoin's valuation, which, as I speak, is up there just above $14,000 per, mainly because it seems to come from just a couple of things. Money is valued, really, according to two things. One is scarcity, and the other is usefulness. And Bitcoin is somewhat useful than what had been imagined, simply because the transactions are relatively expensive and slow. You know, in all of the Bitcoin world, they can only process, I can't remember what the number was. It was maybe 2,000 transactions per hour or something like that. But, you know, that compares with tens of millions of transactions that are already being processed by the credit card companies, the banks. So Bitcoin, as far as its transaction value, has proved to be very limited, and even some of the offshoots that were supposed to be more efficient aren't exactly delivering transaction benefits that are causing Bitcoin to be the payment of choice in all kinds of transactions.
Would accepting Bitcoin be risky for a merchant because you don't know what the value is until you cash it in, and a day or two later it could either be up 20% or down 50%?
Yeah, that's crazy. You know, I kick myself because I drag my feet about taking Bitcoin payments for my own newsletter for subscriptions, and I would have done it. I just never got around to it. I didn't have any philosophical problems with it. And if I'd sat on any of it, of course, I'd be a rich man now. But it's a little different now, you know, when people, the computer geeks took to Bitcoin, it was down there well below $1,000 per. And now with this thing swinging around, most recently from a high near 20,000 to a low of around 11,000. Well, if you're a businessman simply holding these, a piece of Bitcoin, even for, let's say, a meal that you may have served a customer, well, the price of the meal, the price paid, what you actually receive from that person will have a value of half of what it was, at its peak. So, you know, that's crazy money. Who the hell wants to take, you know, it's possible to do it if the transactions themselves are instantly interpolated, you know, Bitcoin to dollar, and that's what the bank gives you. But we don't have robust enough markets yet for that to happen.
Somebody who's really laughing all the way to the bank is Richard Branson, because when he brought out his first space flights for sale, the $20,000 price tag could be paid by Bitcoin, when the Bitcoin, I think, was worth $200 or $300.
Branson is just one of those guys, you know. It's whatever he does makes money, and I think he's just so good-spirited about it, and you know, he's got such good money karma that well, I guess he's one of the winners. You don't begrudge him. He was a very early adopter, and he's sort of on board for whatever the new thing is.
If you're going to do cryptocurrency, is it good to diversify?
It's so nutty because you have all these Bitcoin vehicles that nominally should march in link step, but they don't. You know, even Bitcoin itself will be trading. You might have $300, $400, $500 differential in price between one place where Bitcoin is being exchanged and another. So it really is crazy, and there's certainly no arbitrage there. One of the reasons why the futures contract hasn't caught on is that anybody, Goldman Sachs or whoever, that sells a Bitcoin futures contract has no way to hedge it. It's, you know, you could go out there and try to buy a lot of real Bitcoin and maybe sell a futures contract for a premium, but, you know, there's no way you can do that in size right now. So the markets have yet to develop, and it's anybody's guess how long that'll take.
As we said before, South Korea cracking down on Bitcoin. Do you see other countries doing that as well?
Well, I think that the acceptance of Bitcoin is companionable with countries that are kind of high on the list of free, democratic, open societies. So there's always going to be, I think South Korea is a little bit different. You know, you certainly have an open economy there. They're receptive to new and fabulous new ways to do business with money instruments. But in this case, I guess South Korea may have been the locus of nuttiness as far as Bitcoin speculation. So it's probably a good thing that South Korea has reined in that speculation a bit.
I've heard talk, too, they want to put capital gains tax on it.
Well, you know that's coming in the U.S., and it's interesting that we've got all the geeks holding on to their Bitcoin that they've had from $200 or $300, and it's a tricky question, really, as to how you sell it. But there's no question at all that that it's going to be treated as an investment rather than just simply cash you had on hand.
We'll have more with Rick Ackerman right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp. Inc., MGI on the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected high-grade gold, including 16.9 meters of 13.58 grams and 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program is planned to further evaluate previously identified subsurface high-grade gold mineralization. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
Keep informed. Receive our weekly recap of thought-provoking articles, podcasts, and radio delivered to your inbox for free. Sign up for the howestreet.com weekly recap on our homepage, howestreet.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Rick Ackerman. Rick, Has employment in the U.S. reached its peak where you can't really employ any more people than you have right now?
Well, yeah, it's kind of at that threshold. I don't know that it means much. It's probably much more important to see what jobs are actually being filled. We've had a lot of people drop out of the workforce, and that has kept the unemployment rate relatively low. But as a practical matter, as far as economists are concerned, 4.2% is about as low as we get. I mean, that's even, I think, a little better than their idea of full employment. So anyway, the economy is going full steam on the employment end. Just that unfortunately, this has produced almost no gains in real wages.
Can the U.S. have another good year of growth, or are things going to become stagnant?
Well, it's a funny kind of growth. We have John Hussman is out on his own website with a very interesting analysis that says exactly why we really can't get to anything like sustained 4% growth, which is sort of the mythical target for the Fed at this point. Certainly 3% or above is what they're shooting for. But Hussman explains why the next 12 years really have to be a period of entrenchment of lower returns than people have been getting from certain stocks or futures contracts or ETFs that nominally represent U.S. productivity or GDP. One of them would be the S&P 500, and by Hussman's reckoning, we've seen about as much expansion in that as possible, and there's no way that actual economic growth can sustain the heights that the S&Ps have achieved for one. But that said, I'm also reading Martin Armstrong, who's pretty well respected, is out there with a forecast of Dow 39,000, currently trading 24,800, and far be it for me to jump in the way of that. I mean, as much of a perma-bear as I am, and even if I could give you 20 good reasons why we shouldn't get to Dow 39,000, I've learned that whatever we think, we better pay close attention, in my case, to the charts before we stand in the way of it.
What do you see ahead for gold?
I would say the jury's out right now. I can't see any sustained rise in gold as long as the major market conditions that have obtained for so long are there. We've got a bull market in stocks since 2009, and we've got the dollar has been strong, except for, let's say, this retracement that we've had over the last year. But all the big trends are in place, and I think that only some real shock, something exogenous, will change the picture for gold. But the good news is that I think that gold has done a pretty good job holding its own. It's been in a holding pattern for so long, so it's not really selling off. It's just kind of at a fail-safe level. And if the big picture should change, if the fund managers should wake up one morning and say, geez, what have I done? This is really terrible. I made an awful mistake, and they jump into gold, well, then it'll be different. But I think we're really going to need for the world to change significantly to put gold back into, bullish hyperdrive.
Oil went over the $60 mark briefly yesterday. Is it still going to continue to climb, or has it hit the point of resistance?
Well, I've been for years a perma-bear on crude, and I think that it will eventually go under $30 a barrel, and I mean way under. However, if anybody who's followed my crude forecast for the last couple of years, it's another matter. As bearish as I am on the big picture, I have been pretty consistent with the forecast of $63 or so per barrel based on which contract month you're looking at. So currently the February 2018 NYMEX contract is $59.64 a barrel. So whatever bearish feelings I've harbored in the back of my head, we've got a pretty good rally ahead in crude. I think it'll go at least $4 higher from where it is now.
Rick, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you very much, Jim. Always a pleasure to be on your show.
Be glad to talk to you next year.
That's right. I'll see you in 2018, and let me wish you all and all of your listeners a Happy New Year.
My guest has been Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website, rickackerman.com. If you have any questions for Rick or any other guest, you can send them to info@howestreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Happy New Year, everybody.
Comments made on howestreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at talkdigitalnetwork.com. howestreet.com radio is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.